Welcome to Hard Beautiful Journey, where we embrace vulnerability as our superpower and let courage light our path. I'm Tiff Carson, here to share heartfelt stories of healing, grief, and resilience. Each week, I'll talk with guests from experts to everyday heroes about their journeys through adversity. Together, we'll uncover the beauty that emerges from life's challenges and how each experience can spark profound growth. Join us on this courageous journey of connection and transformation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hard Beautiful Journey, where we dive into the messy, raw, and deeply human stories that remind us of the strength it takes to heal and grow. I am your host, Tiff Carson, and I believe in the transformative power of vulnerability, how sharing our truth can break the chains of shame, release the weight of trauma, and pave the way for connection and deep healing. In today's episode, I am honored to introduce someone very close to me, my cousin Archie. Archie is living proof of what it means to do the hard work of healing. His journey through childhood trauma, years of addiction, and now recovery is not just a story of survival, it's a story of resilience and hope. Archie's willingness to confront his past and share his truth is an incredible act of courage, and I'm so incredibly grateful that he's here to speak with us today. This conversation is more than just Archie's story. It's about the strength that we all have to rise from life's hardest moments and find purpose in our pain. So let's dive in. Hello. There's my cousin. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How you doing, guys?
I'm good. Okay. So there might be a time throughout this interview where I use the word bunk. It's his nickname. So I might call you Bunk, I might call you Arch, but that is his nickname. So thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I can't wait to dive in because I know how critical this message that you have is to so many people that are going through really hard times, especially with addiction. It's at an all-time high right now in this world. And I know that your story and your journey of healing and going through recovery is going to inspire so many people. And so let's dive in, all right?
You betcha. Let's go.
All right. So let's start with your story. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with your childhood and some of the stuff that you experienced growing up? And yeah, some of the stuff that we've had some really good coffee talks, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
And it was when I heard, just like with my brother, when I heard about some of the stuff that was really hard for him, it honestly just gives me so much compassion for people that experience these things and why it could have led you to the journey that you had. So let's start there.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll just start with I know for me, the addiction in that part of my life that came in, I know it stemmed from definitely the childhood trauma. From the time I was 2 to probably 8 years old, I dealt with some really traumatic child abuse from one of my family members that, it was physical, mental, emotional. And due to that trauma and that abuse as a child, I know it basically destroyed all self-worth that I had, self-esteem, any of that stuff. Like, I mean, from a very young age, I didn't feel like belong. I didn't feel like fit. Um, and on top of just the abuse alone, the mental side of it was, I was convinced that, I was born of evil, I guess you could say that, in a lot worse terms than that. But I believed into that. It was beaten into me, and basically because of the things that happened as a child, I always felt less than everybody else here, everyone else in the world. I always put myself way down below everybody, and that was just because of what was, I'd say, I guess, brainwashed into me. I played into it and I believed it. That I shouldn't even be here. That I shouldn't even be alive today because of it's the stuff that happened as a child, and it actually, I know, because of that, it put me on a path that from a very young age, wanting to escape, you know, not knowing how to feel. I grew up from a very young age just not feeling like I belonged at all, and that's just because of what I played into and what I believed. My self worth wasn't there, and even up to today, I still struggle with turning that around. That's probably one of the main things that has kept me in my addiction for as long as it did is I just didn't feel I belong. I'm not worthy. Especially
Mm-hmm.
worthy of having a good life, having happiness, having the rest of the day, having things in life that everybody else have. I give away everything and leave me with nothing. That's what I've done for most of my life. So I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, um, definitely that trauma as a child played a big role in what happened to me throughout my life, and definitely the depths of addiction and some of the really horrible places I've been because of it.
So, where did the first instances of alcohol and drugs start for you?
Honestly, the first time I drank, um, probably 2 to 3 years old. Um, we used to have get-togethers on the farm, and during summer holidays, all the family would get together, all my cousins and aunts and uncles. Everyone would come out to the farm, and they would drink and do their thing, and us kids, we get to play hide and seek, and um, we called it ghost, is what we called it, because we did it at night, right? But it was just
Mm-hmm.
hide and seek. So I mean, for me, my first experience with alcohol came. I was 2 to 3 years old. After everyone was done drinking and all the adults went home, I went around drinking the bottoms of empty glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I know now, looking back at it, when I was that small a child, I didn't know what was happening to me. But years later, after becoming, starting to drink and knowing what the effects were, yeah, I was drunk at the age of 2 to 3. The first time I experienced alcohol, and then from there, it just, yes, the next episode would have been 7, roughly 7 years old. We went into Medicine Hat from the farm to visit family, and ended up getting into my aunt's homemade choke cherry wine with a couple of my cousins, and that ended up being, yeah, got really lit. We basically drank 2/3 of one of them 4 liter A&W jugs, some old ones of
Mm-hmm.
homemade choke cherry wine. Yeah, that was probably the second time that was my experience with alcohol. And yeah, I don't remember much after it. But we drank. I remember going back to the farm with my parents and throwing up in the back of my dad's car. He was pretty upset about it.
Choke
And
cherry
I
wine.
remember,
Ugh.
yeah, that they used to make that strong
Oh
stuff.
yeah, it was very strong. So,
Yeah,
so can I ask you a question?
yeah,
How, because of the trauma that you experienced at a young age, when you were drinking that alcohol, that choke cherry wine, when you were 7, did it take some of the pain away? Is that what led you to continue doing it, or was it just experimenting and just doing what your cousins were doing with you?
yeah. I think at that time it was experimenting, like honestly, I grew up in alcoholism on both sides of my family, right? So from
Mm-hmm.
a very young age, it was normal to drink, right? That's pretty much any type of function. It involved alcohol, right? I
Mm-hmm.
grew up on both sides of my family, right? Um, so for me, this was the norm. So that at 7 years old, it was older cousin that talked me and his younger brother into it. So it was just kind of something, just yeah, peer pressure. It just yeah, went with it, right? So I mean, I don't think it was really at that age that I was doing what came later, the numbing out and not wanting to feel process. I know that started probably with the next episode where Where the drinking started to get more was probably around 11. And that's when I stopped going to see certain family members because of the abuse as a child. And that's where the drinking started to play more of a role, where then it was numbing out those feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we grew up, it was different growing up with me, I grew up with that old school mentality, right? Men don't cry, you don't
Mm-hmm.
show emotion, you don't show love, so you were taught from a young age to repress everything as it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not being able to talk about what's going on and the things that happened to me, it took a lot of years before I even shared any of this with my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm talking in my late 20s, in my 20s when it first started. And then there's stuff that even my family just found out in the last 5, 8 years, some of the stuff that happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what happened when you were 11? What did you start using?
Then it was just experimenting more drinking. I instead of going to my grandma and grandpa's on summer holidays, I went and seen an uncle of mine that lived up central Alberta, and he was a gravel hauler, and he was like a big brother, right? He was always the fun guy to be around. So I started going to spend my summer holidays with him because I didn't want to be around certain other family members, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just with him, he was a drinker, and he took me to work with him, and he'd let me drive, sit on his lap, drive his gravel truck, and so I mean, it just started there with just having a beer here, beer there, and then it got into drinking hard liquor. Whiskey came into the picture, and yeah, by the time I was 12 years old, um, I ended up getting pretty ill. I was throwing up, vomiting up blood and stuff, right? I was having really bad stomach issues. And it was due to, we went to the doctor, and the doctor did some testing and diagnosed it as being that I had a drinking ulcer, 12 years old,
At
drinking hard
12
liquor
years old.
at 12 years old. Yeah. So the doctor said, recommended that, yeah, you can't be drinking. That has to stop. This is the reason why. And, being 12 years old, to me, that was a badge of honor, right? Like, wow, man, I got a drinking ulcer, it's something to brag about. So I mean, instead of it scaring me away from drinking, it just became something, that was the norm, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
just started to get more and more from there on. Uh, Probably from the age of 12 on is where it started to become more of a normal thing to do. Summer holidays, we used to go to bush parties, and there'd be, get-togethers, school get-togethers where, we'd all go out and have bush parties and stuff where drinking just became more of a normal thing to do. And yeah, and it just progressed from there.
And were you using drugs at that time as well, or were you mainly using alcohol as a teenager?
It was mainly drinking until 14. 14 is the first time that drugs came in the picture. I started experimenting with marijuana, started there with weed, and it just became, the drinking was ended up starting to become like a weekend thing. Um, get together with friends, and whether it was a bush party or just summer holidays, it was usually every weekend. It was a bush party or something that we'd go to. The drinking and marijuana came into the picture then, and it was just kind of the experimental phase. I didn't do it a whole bunch. Um, Kind of more or less, we try a little here and there on the weekends. And probably by the time I quit school, I started grade 10, high school, ran into some issues in the town I was living in, and basically quit school, started working, and then that's when drinking really started to progress a lot more. Started smoking weed a lot more, and then that's when the experimenting with hard drugs started to. The cocaine came into the picture, LSD, mushrooms, other things, experimental wise. For me, because of all the pain I had inside, and not sharing it with nobody, just holding that all in, it just made it easier for me to. I like the effects of what I got from using. I didn't feel. The more I did it, the less I felt.
Mm-hmm.
So it just progressed from there, and it got to the point where once hard drugs came into the picture, drinking was a problem for a long time. Like I was an alcoholic for a lot of years before I actually switched from drinking to drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, But once the drugs, I started doing some of the hard drugs, like cocaine was probably one of my biggest issues. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that, one of the ones that kept taking me out the most. Uh, I love the drug, and it just, yeah, it took me to some pretty severe, dark places, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just with the drug itself. It was the people that I was around, the situations I put myself in. Yeah, it's been a ride, put it that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about one of those rides, which was a few years ago. You had a near death experience.
Yeah.
All of us were not pretty, we were all very, very worried about you. Can you tell us about that one and what
Yeah.
kept you going during that time, even when it felt like it was impossible to move forward?
Okay, the episode, yeah, this one here was probably, I'd say, probably one of the worst rock bottoms. Um, I'd met a girl when I was living out in BC. I was actually going to meetings at that time. I was probably close to a year clean at that time. And the girl I met, we were going to meetings together. After being going to meetings for about 3 months, it ended up being that she said she was on the same path as me, same journey, and I made the decision to. I haven't I hadn't drank liquor in a long time. At that point, I was probably 10 years off of liquor already. Just strictly drug use in that period. So for me, she had a problem with drinking, and honestly, I found out later on it was more to it than just that. But I decided to have some drinks with her, because I'm not an alcoholic. I haven't drank in a long time. That I can have a few drinks and get the girl, and then stop the drinking. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't work out. It started off as we partied basically for 4 or 5 days straight. Booze, ended up the drinking just progressed more, and it's probably within a couple week period that I stopped going to meetings. The recovery end of things stopped. The focus went to the girl, and not long after that, then cocaine came back in the picture. Um, I was with this girl for probably just about a year, just shy of a year, when this incident happened that we're talking about. I ended up getting blood poisoning, pneumonia in both my lungs. My lungs collapsed. I ended up in Vancouver ICU on life support in a coma. And basically, yeah, the doctors and everything, like my family, had ended up coming out, flying out to be there with me during that period. Once I got to Vancouver, uh, they were telling my folks basically to make arrangements that once we take him off life support, he's not going to make it because it was that bad, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
was in the hospital for 2 months. This was the end of November, and I got out of the hospital middle of January. I was just over 100 pounds. I was between 100 to 105 pounds. Just skin on bone, on oxygen. I couldn't walk. I had to learn to walk again. I left in a wheelchair, just a shell of a human being. And I'd say the thing that kept me going through that period is definitely my higher power. Previous to getting sick and this happening, uh, I made the choice in my birthday, March 4th of 2020. This is during my recovery when I was actually in recovery and going to meetings, working on my recovery. I chose my higher power, which was because of my mom. I called my mom and I asked her a bunch of questions, and she's been devout her whole life. And God's the only one thing I've never ever tried. In all the years of trying to get sober and doing this, I've been doing this for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say for me, the biggest thing that helped me through that was definitely my higher power. I know God was there with me. If not, I wouldn't be here today, especially hearing the doctors on more than one occasion telling my parents to make arrangements that, you're going to have to arrange a funeral because he's not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Having to write a letter up of power of attorney to my mom to take care of all my affairs during this period, right? While I'm still on life support. And I guess the second biggest would be my family support I had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, uh, yeah, the amount of support I had from family was astronomical. I had a cousin, my oldest nephew that flew out. Oh, he's my oldest nephew. He flew out during this period. Um, my mom and dad. Blew out. They were there instantly from the time it happened. From the night my lungs collapsed, my mom was there already. My sister showed up, and just my other sister was on Facebook the whole time talking to family and friends and all the people that were really concerned, that were just devastated with what was happening with me. And I know that's what helped me get through it.
You had a massive prayer army
Mm,
for a
definitely.
very long time, and I don't think that prayer army has ever stopped praying for you. So,
No. And honestly, Tiff, I can say, you know what happened just before I got sick? I had my cousin there with me too.
mm-hmm,
And that I know.
mm-hmm,
Because honestly, I didn't get a chance to even go to the funeral or get to say goodbye to him because I was sick and dying.
yeah.
And I know he was there with me too. That I know for sure.
Oh, yeah. He most definitely was there saying, no.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
not
I know.
your turn right now, bud. You got
No.
some work to do. He's doing it
Yeah.
from the other side, but you're doing it here, right?
100%. Most definitely.
So,
So I know. Go ahead. Yeah.
how, now that we're crying,
Mhm.
how would you describe the emotional toll that addiction has both on you and your loved ones from
It's
the addict side?
from my side, it's been devastating because of from a very young age. As soon as I got into the drug side of things, my family, both sides, I'm the one that brought drugs into the picture, right? Before that, um, it was all alcoholism, right? And out and drinking. So I mean, families all knew what alcohol was, right? When I started getting into my drugs and my drug addiction, it was something that's new that they've never experienced. So for me, I hid it. I kept it from them. I never lied about that I was using. They knew because I was never around. So I figured I'm doing them a favor and I'm protecting them so they don't have to see their son all messed up on drugs, right? So I never exposed them to it. I kept it from them and I kept myself from them. So I mean, we're talking decades of them being pushed away and kept in an arm's length. The closer they'd get, the farther away I'd go, right? Because I figured I'm protecting them and I'm doing them a favor until all this stuff happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know the damage it's caused my family and my loved ones because all they've ever wanted to do is be there and to help. They wanted to help, and I never allowed it. I figured in my own sick way, I was figuring I was doing them solid. I was doing them a favor by not letting them see me in my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I robbed them and myself of a lot of help, especially the help I'm getting now.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, without the love and support I have of my family and the ones that are closest to me right now, I wouldn't be successful like I am now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason why. And my man upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
completely.
Mm-hmm. What do you wish that people understood about addiction that often gets overlooked?
Well, we talked about this the other day, Tiff, when I come had coffee with you, and I think the biggest thing that I see, and I know how it was for me when I was actually homeless, even on the streets, and really deep in my addiction, was biggest thing is people don't understand. But I mean, a lot of it is we're looked at as less than, that we're degenerates, that we're not worthy of even that we're less than, we're looked at as, to a sense, garbage has more value than we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it, and I only say this because I had those same views and stuff pushed on me by people that, they just don't even acknowledge that you're a human being,
Mm-hmm.
but we're sick people, right? I know that there's a lot of things I regret that I've done, but you know what? Deep down inside, I know the person I am,
Mm-hmm.
right?
The heart that you
And
have.
yeah, and we
Mm-hmm.
all have that,
We
right?
all do.
Some people are a little more lost than others. I've been lost so deep in my addiction at times that, I didn't even know who I was looking in the mirror. But, inside still, that's not who I am. Addiction brings out the worst in everybody. you know, and you know, I'm not proud of some of the things and a lot of things that I've done and I became during my addiction, but that's not the true me. That's not the person that's inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's really it's hard to see it, and you know what, it's been changing a lot in the last while. You know, there's been a lot more awareness when it comes to how bad and how tough addiction is. You know, I noticed that there has been some changes being made, but there's a lot of people out there that are just uneducated. You know, that you know, they need compassion. You know,
Thank you for saying that
things don't
word.
change without compassion, right?
I think
Honestly,
until
for me,
you've been through it or you know somebody that's been through it, it may be harder to have that compassion or just that understanding of,
mm,
of how almost impossible it feels to break it, right?
it is. I've struggled with this for a lot of years, Tiff, and you know this. And the thing is I don't ever give up on myself. I don't quit. You know, um, I'm sitting here today clean and sober because of that not quit attitude. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're not proud of the things we do. We're not proud of being an addict. You know, deep inside, we all know we have that feeling inside. You know, we don't like who we are, what we've become, and you know, all it is we want a way out, and
Mm-hmm.
it's it's hard to find for some people. There's a lot of things we have today that a lot of them aren't even aware of. You know, the 12-step meetings. You know, there's so many different treatment centers. Like honestly, I'm a part of one right now. That's a huge movement that's happening that it actually has changed my life. It's put me in a place where, you know, I've managed to stay at a center for 15, 16 weeks to do a program, but I'm also still part of this center for another 9 months to work on my recovery, to where the aftercare, they have the alumni where you become part of a community, a family. You're never alone
Mm-hmm.
again. You know, it's not just you go to a center, go there for so many weeks and then the doors open. No, I'm in a place where you don't ever have to be alone again.
Mm-hmm.
You're surrounded by so many people that are there doing the same thing, fighting the same battle, have been down the same paths, you know, that are 2, 3, 5, 10 years clean, that are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we're a big family, a big community, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and there's not that awareness out there. I mean, there's a lot of people on the streets that, you know, I'm an advocate of, if I see somebody on the streets, I will talk to them. I'll let them know, you know, I've been there. I've been in the same spots as you, but you know what? There's a way out.
Mm-hmm.
There is a solution to this, and it's a matter of you just got to go to a meeting, check a meeting out, to talk to some people. You know, I've always been that guy that, you know, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I care about people, and I'm grateful for that because, you know, there's a lot of times I didn't have that from others, and it made it so, you know what, it's given me what I got today, and especially to be able to help others and be there for others.
Mm-hmm.
We have to. It's the only way this works.
So, recovery isn't a straight line ever. So, I know that you've obviously had some relapses, including one before this year long one. What was it that this time said, I need to pick myself back up and put myself in a place for a year?
The biggest thing I think was with this is because um I've been around this for like a long time. Like I know there's a solution. There's, you know, the meetings, there's 12 steps that you work, you know, there's the sponsorship, there's a lot of different things that, you know, I've gotten all these tools over the years. Um, but the thing that was missing for a lot of it was the higher power piece, you know, having that faith and that belief in something other than myself that can help me. And not, I'm not talking a human power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a human power doesn't do it, right? Or else I'd have been able to do this myself a long time ago. So for me, this last little relapse was short. You know, it was my shortest relapse ever. It was a matter of like 6 weeks, I think it was. Um, but during that 6 week period, I went to detox for 10 days as well. And I got out and ended up using again because I knew I was calling in and I'd be getting back into the place I'm in right now. But the night before I got the call to go back to the center that I'm at right now, which I'm so grateful for, I was at that falling off point completely where I'm a low bottom junkie, right? I've stuck needles in my arms. I've done everything where for me, I fought that this relapse that I just had a while back. I never picked up a needle, right? And that's what I was fighting not doing, because if I did, I knew what would happen. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
make it back, right? And it was a Sunday night. I was at that falling off point where it was honestly, if I didn't get this call to get back into treatment, I was about to go out and start grabbing a needle again, start doing things that way. And I sat in bed and crying and praying for hours and just basically said, I'm done. I can't do this no more. I need help. I need something to change right now. I need, God, if you can just have that call come through. Cause honestly, I'm at this point right now that, if that call don't come in, something don't change right now, I won't make it back.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
next day I got the call.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm trying not to ugly cry here.
Okay.
So when we had coffee the other day, you talked about wanting to shift your focus. You were originally going to, when you work through the program, becoming an addiction counselor, but you said that you want to shift focus and move more towards talking to young people.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
drives that passion to want to talk and help young people more?
I'd say the big passion with that is, well, from one, the children are our future, right? And I'm a guy that doesn't have children. I've always wanted children. To me, they're the most important part of life as far as I'm concerned. Um, but the focus changed because of, I guess there's a few reasons behind that. Um, the biggest one is, you know, kids are kids, man. Once you're an adult and you've already made those choices to use and you become an addict, you're already in it. It's a lot harder to get through to someone once they're in addiction, right? It's a lot harder because they need to make that choice. Where working with adolescents and young children, you can share your stories, you can give them an educated choice. Not like for me, it was experimenting to find out what this stuff is. And I guess another one of the biggest ones is, um, things have changed a lot since when I was young. The drugs when I was young didn't kill you.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with drugs today that your first use you can die.
Mm-hmm.
Like the odds are you're probably gonna die. So I mean, being able to
Can you, sorry
just
to
share.
interrupt, can you give a couple examples for for my audience who like honestly don't know anything about the drug situation that's going on out in the world right now?
Well, the worst one is the fentanyl that's out there. They're opiates, and opiate the strongest opiate you got. And I mean, it's so addictive and it's so powerful that you have the chance of first time you use, you overdose and you die. I mean, that's the drugs that are out there today, between the fentanyl, the carfentanil, um, the others, the meth, and the other drugs that are out there. And the thing that it is they're putting this fentanyl in everything. You know, um, when I grew up when I was younger, this drug wasn't around. This drug didn't exist. And I mean, this drug literally is killing everybody. And we're talking people that have been doing drugs for decades, that it's so powerful that they use it and they die, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then they're putting this stuff into everything, the cocaine,
Cocaine,
weed,
everything. Mm-hmm.
into everything, the meth. Like, it doesn't matter. They're cutting it into everything. So I mean, you're basically playing Russian roulette with a loaded gun.
Mm-hmm.
Not one bullet in the chamber. It's got all six.
Mm-hmm.
And the odds are that with this drug that's out there today, you're gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
There's this, like for us in the rooms, it's jails, institutions, or death. Usually that's your three things you got to look forward to being an addict.
Mm-hmm.
With the way it is today, you got pretty much the one that's death, and I've seen it. I've lost a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot. I've watched a lot of people die in front of me. I've seen people die. I've saved many lives because of knowing what to do. Being there at the right time and being able to Narcan 'em and save their life. You know,
Yeah.
Before I tried the drug, I had saved 8 people's lives before I even tried the drug myself. I stayed away from it because I used it 3 times and I died 3 times. So I stuck with what I knew, and that was cocaine and speed. Because the odds are, yes, I've overdosed many times over the years, way more than I can ever count. But you come back from it. That stuff, you don't. So I mean,
It's a one and
it's
done
evil.
for a lot.
Yeah, it's evil. And that's why for me, my changing my focus to work with adolescents, child, and youth. Because you know what, if they got an educated choice and know what they're up against, they're not going to make that choice because it's like I said, playing Russian roulette with a loaded gun today. Scary.
It's very scary. How do you envision sharing your story with the youth and adolescents to make that impact on their lives?
I'd say the biggest will be with the 12-step meetings and the groups I go to. They have the teenage ones, the ones that are under 18, that they have their treatment centers, which they come to meetings. And I mean, they're the younger, they're not 18 yet, so they're still teenagers. So I mean, being able to see them and talk with them and get the message across to them, they're at our meetings to get to listen to hear us share. But I'd like to be able to, once I'm already signed up for some schooling and I'm going to be pursuing it, and it'll be whether, going to schools, you know, anything that basically I can do, that has to do where I can get my message out there, right? That's what I want to do. It's kind of tough to start with at the beginning. I have to get a little bit of schooling done and obviously get people behind me and able to do that because you can't just walk into a school to go share your story, especially with, what the story is, right? But I mean, I'm looking out into do whatever avenue I can to make that happen. So,
So I have something called the Healing Heart Journey framework, which three of the pillars relate to your particular journey very closely. One of them is use your voice. How has sharing your story helped you start to heal and connect with others?
I'd say the biggest is, it took me a long time to be able to even talk about what was inside. The more I do it, the easier it gets. I know in order for me to heal, I have to expose a lot of these things inside that have been tucked away for so long in the dark, right? So in order for me to heal and even have the possibility of healing is you got to be able to share these things. And I'd say for me, it started with treatment center way back a long time ago where they broke the ice with me and made it so that, I started talking. Since then, I'd say the biggest is the 12-step groups I go to where, you share every meeting, there's topics that come up and then, you're able to share. And I guess for me, since I started talking, I haven't stopped. I need this stuff out and it's the only way I heal. Yes, I cry a lot. There's still a lot of stuff deep down that I haven't gotten it all out yet, and I know there's still be more that will come out. But I've been able to tap into a lot of these deep dark places, and I've been able to expose it, get
I
it out.
know we talked about this on the weekend as well, and the weight that is lifted off of your whole body, your heart, your soul, when you do share some of this stuff. Is that how you've experienced it as well?
Oh, completely. It's like you said, we kind of put it towards like a great big huge boulder weight being lifted off your shoulders. I'd say for me, it's I feel it internally. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my soul. I feel the internal, like, the emotions, I feel again, and I haven't felt for so long that, I didn't know what feelings were, what emotions were. I didn't know how to deal with them. I didn't know what they were half the time, where now I feel everything, and that's just come from being able to talk about these things. And, there's times, it starts, and I cry. It's cleansing, and I don't care. I cry whenever I have to because honestly, that's part of the journey, right? It cleanses
The,
the soul.
the
So
tears are cleaning up your heart and soul.
yeah,
They're very
most
cleansing.
definitely.
Another one is nurture your soul. What spiritual or emotional practices have helped you rediscover hope and purpose?
For me, I do a lot when it comes to that. My day, well, when it comes to what I do with recovery, with 12-step meetings and all the recovery based stuff and the program we do, it's you only have a daily reprieve, right? So I mean, you only have a 24-hour period where you get a reprieve for that period. That's it, one day at a time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, my ritual starts the same every day, ends the same every day. I wake up, first thing is that I do is I pray. I surrender, ask my higher power to help me through this day. I need your guidance. Thank you for allowing me to wake up another day sober. And then I pray for the day and I pray for others, and just being able to be there and accountable and put someone in my path to be able to help. And then from there, I do my morning readings and meditation, which is daily devotionals between NACA, AA, our
Mm-hmm.
readings, followed up by I have religious devotional, which is Jesus Calling, which I read, and then I do some passages out of the Bible, which I read. That's just my higher power. That's who
Mm-hmm.
I chose to have my higher power being.
Mm-hmm.
And then I plan my day out, go throughout the day, and anytime anything comes up, it's prayer and meditation, turning things over, not letting things build up, dealing with them as they come up. Biggest one is prayer and talking about it. I go to meetings, I attend a lot of meetings. I have a lot of supports, a sponsor that I talk to just about daily, um, people in the rooms, and I got so many healthy supports and friends in my life now that, I talk to people all the time. And then
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, I sit down and do my step 10 and 11, which is a written inventory at night, going over if I harmed anyone, it was selfishness, dishonesty, or any of this, written out step 11 at night. And then I pray and go to bed and, let things go. I go to bed with a clear slate.
Mm-hmm. Well, you spoke about the people that you surround yourself with. That's another pillar is find your tribe. How important is it in your recovery to surround yourself with people, the right people during recovery?
It's huge. It's probably one of the things that I love the most about the place I'm at right now. I'm going to say it's Fresh Start. I'm just going to mention in the actual recovery center that I'm at. Um, they have once you gratitude, you become part of the alumni, and I mean it's a community in itself. You never have to be alone again. So for me, community is huge. I surround myself. You have to stay connected. My last relapse that happened that was short. I stopped reaching out. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped talking to my sponsor, and I stopped praying, right? So you lose those connection pieces right away. And for me, that's the most dangerous because honestly, that's what keeps me going is knowing that I don't have to be alone ever again. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Picking up is the thing that will destroy me. So it doesn't matter how bad things are going to get. As long as I don't pick up that first use, that's the biggest success a guy can have in a day. But surrounding yourself with everybody that in your supports, your healthy new friendships you've made, people in the rooms, your sponsor, just, that community piece is huge. Without that, I don't think it'd be possible. Because,
Mm-hmm.
being by yourself, that's the stuff that takes us back out, isolation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Opposite of addiction is connection.
Absolutely. What would you say to a young person who is starting to go down a path similar to yours? If
I'd
you saw
say
someone right in front of you right now, what would you say to them?
I would basically just sit down and start talking to see kind of where they're at. And I start sharing some about my story, right? It depends like if they can tell they're high or what it might be. Or just like you said, they're starting to go down that path. I think the biggest way to get through to someone is just show them they're not alone, right? That you understand, right? So I mean, just by sharing a bit of your story to anybody, you know, they can pick something out of it that they can relate to. So for me, the biggest thing I can do is make sure they're okay. It's usually the first thing I ask you, okay, what are you doing right now? If you have some time, especially if I'm going to a meeting or I'm going to a place where, they can see what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll always ask someone to go to a meeting. I usually stop on the street and talk to people all the time when I'm heading to a meeting. Would you got an hour of your time? Do you mind joining me? But I mean, the biggest thing you can do is just share. Show them that they're not alone. The smallest gesture of kindness goes a long way. with
So by
anybody.
sharing I've been reading a book right now by Brene Brown about vulnerability, the power of vulnerability. And by you sitting down and having a conversation with somebody that you know could be going down the same path or struggling, and telling them a little bit about your story is vulnerability, and it's also
Mhm.
releasing shame.
Oh yeah,
Because in order to reach somebody where they are at and for them to truly feel like they are being seen and that you really understand what they're going through, you have to be vulnerable and you have to release that shame.
absolutely, absolutely.
And
I agree.
so I'm so proud of you for doing that work. It's helping not just you, it's
Most
helping so
definitely.
many people, right? How can families of addicts and communities better support individuals that are struggling with addiction and trauma?
When it comes to that, like I think the biggest piece that people that can do is just to be supportive. You know what I mean? The worst thing you can do is being judgmental, being forceful, getting angry, dictating, stuff like that doesn't work. The biggest thing is just love and compassion. I mean, if there's someone you care about, there's nothing I wouldn't do for anybody, let alone someone that I care about. You know, I would go to the ends of the earth for just about anybody. So I think the best way to get through to anybody is love and compassion. Right? You got to put yourself in their shoes, even if you can't understand because you've never been there. But I mean, think of it as say that's your sibling, your mom, your dad. What would you do for them? You know, we're all humans. We're all equal. You know, it's not easy. Life isn't easy, but it gets a lot harder when you're segregated, and especially when, yeah, it's just love and compassion. That's all I can say.
Well, I'm going to bring up this one again because it ties right into what you just said. I've never been a drug or alcohol addict, but I've had my own very difficult struggles in my life. And for a long time, with my brother, who was an addict, I tried to change him. I tried to shame him. I tried to make him be somebody else because he didn't fit my narrative of what he should be, right? And it was when I stepped back and looked at my own struggles and then I found out about his, that's when I had compassion for him, more compassion than I ever had for him. And I chose to love him through it.
Yeah,
And I tell everybody this as soon as I made that decision, I didn't ever tell, I don't want to cry. I didn't ever tell him that I made that choice, but he could feel it.
of course, of course.
He
I
could
get it
feel
completely.
it in just how I talked to him as a human,
Yeah,
how I held his hand and how I looked at him. I just chose love instead of
mm,
change,
yeah,
instead of shaming him. And
yeah.
it didn't change the outcome, but it changed our relationship.
Completely. I get it, Tiff, and that's well said. And I know why we're receptive to that because we see it as genuine, right? Because you don't get that from many people, right? You get the other, right? Where
Yeah.
people are, I get it because loved ones they're hurt, they're hurt too, and I understand, they're just coming from a place of hurt. But I mean, for us being where we are, we deal with that from everybody, right? So I mean, all it does for us is want to push people farther away,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we're shame. We live in guilt, shame, and remorse all the time, right?
Yeah.
So doing what you did is, I know why it changed. We can sense that. I can sense when someone's genuine, or they're just saying stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
big difference.
It's called energy, and it's called, you can feel it, and you
Yeah.
can, it's very, very clear that
Yeah,
energy when somebody truly means what they're saying and has the love and the compassion for you. So,
definitely.
yeah. As you continue your recovery, what are some of your goals for your future, and what do you look forward to in the next chapter of your life?
I'd say some of my goals that I got is just, continuing on this journey that I'm on, definitely broadening my understanding of my higher power. I do a lot when it comes to my belief and my faith, just expanding that more, where I bring it into my life every day, every minute, every day. I don't do that. I haven't been able to get there yet. As for some of my long-term goals is just, definitely following up with this schooling that I want to do. I know it's going to take me, there's some barriers to things I have to work on between getting a pardon and some other things, right? In order so that I can actually follow through with getting the bachelor in child and youth care and becoming a counselor and that. So, focusing on schooling for the next while, taking care of some of those barriers that are in the way and
Mm-hmm.
just continuing to work this process. And I think the biggest will be, um, I'm, giving back now where I can start sponsoring others. Um, since I've been through the steps and I'm at that point where, I can take sponsees on now besides finding out for my career and the passion I have for helping child and youth and helping people that, deal with what I deal with. Also, like I said, definitely just helping others doing that sponsorship thing where I know that takes things to the next level when you help others and walk them through this process because it's you don't get to keep what you got unless you give it away. That's part of it all. It's being completely selfless, I guess you could say. And
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of my goals for the next while is just continuing focusing on what I'm doing and just strengthening all those little areas. So
Mm-hmm. Is there a message or piece of advice that you'd like to leave with my listeners that may be struggling or know someone who is struggling right now?
I got a little thing here that I wrote. It's an actual motto with the place I'm at. It's called Every Individual Recovery for Life. I'm just gonna read this, and it's a motto that for me kind of speaks volumes to uh, how recovery can be beneficial. Okay, it's every individual recovery for life. This quote means a lot to me. What it represents to me is no matter who you are, what walks of life you come from, how many people you've hurt, how low of a bottom you've hit, we all deserve the same chance of recovery. A community where you can turn your life around, become clean and sober, and clear up the wreckage of your past. With individuals who understand you, have been down the same dark paths, and want to help you. Not because they have to or are told to, but because they genuinely care and want to. Inside every addict and every human being is a good person. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, and we get lost inside ourselves and just need the right guidance to find our way back to the light. This is something we all deserve, no matter how much wrong we've done. Love and peace. So for me, that's kind of speaks volumes to what's available, like when it comes to recovery. It's just that awareness piece, and honestly, if you got a loved one or someone that's in your life struggling, the best thing you can do, I'd say, is there's a lot of meetings out there where it can get your foot in the door. If anything, just a place where you can start to heal. You can start to find out that there's places you can go where you're not alone. Definitely, there's Al-Anon. There's like a lot of different 12-step programs out there that aren't treatment centers. That's another step you can take. But the biggest is there's a lot of meetings out there where just going to one, listening, it opens that door for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way out. There's a solution. There's a lot of different solutions for this out there.
Oh my goodness. I end every interview asking my guests what they are grateful for today. What are you grateful for today, Archie?
Honestly, I say it all the time. I'm a grateful recovering addict, and honestly, I wouldn't change a thing because everything that's happened in my life has got me to this point. And I'm grateful for my higher power, my family, my loved ones, my supports that I have. I'm grateful for a lot of things today. Most grateful thing I'm grateful for right now is being able to sit here and talk to you, to share my story.
I am so incredibly, I know I've said it earlier, but I'm so grateful for you. I caught him at the right time, people. He is on a break because he's doing so well in his recovery that he is at his family's house, my aunt and uncle's. And I know I was actually supposed to have another guest on today. She will be on the podcast later in the season. Another addiction tragedy, actually. And when you were at my house the other day, I got a message from God and from my brother who gave me a nudge, and they were just saying over and over, he needs to be on your podcast. And I wasn't sure if you were going to accept it, but I listened. And I think it's when we stop and we listen that we can do the good things in this world, like you sharing your story, that I know is going to help other people. So I am grateful that you were willing to share your story tonight. And yeah, I love you.
I love you too, Tev. Thank you for having me on, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Love you lots.
Love you too. Thanks for being here for this episode of Hard Beautiful Journey. I hope today's episode inspired you to embrace your own vulnerabilities and recognize the strength within you. Remember, every story of resilience adds to the beauty of our shared journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps me spread hope and healing to even more listeners. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing the beauty in your journey. Bye-bye.